Okie dokie. Let me get myself a little bit settled in here. I've got quite a lot of things open, and there might be a bit of a lag. And I want to be a bit fancy, so TNFS is first here. He wins a cookie, and JR, you're the runner-up, I guess. You win a cracker. Now, let me try to get us into the mood a little bit. Dum, 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 dum. Please adjust your headsets. Oh, I better put myself on. I better put myself on mute. We're gonna have a little tune from the YouTube audio library, just to warm us up, and then we'll be back, or I'll be back, or whatever. Ah, dang! It didn't work. Oh, I don't know why that didn't happen. It's playing the next song. Right, we'll stop that. Stop goofing around, Billy. So I'm not sure. I guess when you share a screen, it doesn't share the audio. Maybe, I don't know. And I noticed that my avatar is just a white circle. I don't know why. Oh dear. So okay, I'll put on a little picture instead. A little backdrop. Now, I've got 3 pages I've written out for this subject, and some of the paragraphs might be there might be repeated themes or sentiments. Sorry about that. You know, these subject matters, there's a lot of overlap, and when there's a repetition, well, it's for a reason. Kind of like it saves you trying to remember everything that's had been said, and brings you back. Like, remember what we mentioned earlier. Now factor that into what we're saying now. So I'm jumping from screen to screen here. So I want to see my text and I want to update the banners. All right, so let's get rid of that one for a second. All right. It's bugging me that I got a white avatar. Right, so the flying monkey. There are many types of monkeys. There is the unaware enabler, but should they know they're being used, they could push back. There is the intel monkey, but the informant brings information. The lookout tower, the spy, infiltrator type, covert, providing the narcissist information, perhaps by accident, unaware again. There is like the relative flying monkey, a brother, a sister, a cousin, whatnot. Someone who is in the family dynamics, and they might know that the narc is a narc. They might recognize that their sibling or parents is a narcissist. However, being stuck in the family household, they must obey. There's not much they can do about it, even though they may disagree. And so I'm generally talking about the kind of monkey that is, how should we say, like they're in cahoots or they're in bed with the narcissist. And we sometimes call them white knights. And just as an observation, it seems to be more pronounced in males, men. I mean, the knight is essentially a man anyway. But, I mean, it could happen the other way around. But I think it's more noticeable with the males. So, if it were the other way around, instead of like save my queen, it'd be save the king. But really, the king would be willing to dirty their own hands. So he doesn't need to offer love to the women knights beneath him, only security and status. And so consequently, the female version of the white knight regard themselves lucky to be in the king's presence. They don't particularly look towards him as a father figure, rather as a ruler, and they hope to be one day his queen. So they are more drawn to power than love. The female queen, or with the male white knights, the queen usually operates in a way, she does not directly dirty her hands. So there's a difference straight away. The king is willing to dirty his hands and take care of business himself. He's more of a tyrant, and a ruler, a dominator. The queen gets a henchman to do it for her. So, and the white knights under her command tend to look at her more like a mother figure. They are drawn to the love and attention. They're happy to let the queen have the power as long as they are seen. And it doesn't have to be such a master and slave dynamic, or like a ruler and the puppet strings. For example, you could have people who look up to role models, and if not careful, the same dynamic will form. The role model, without intention, could possess the follower's self-esteem. So I hope that makes sense. So you could have someone, you could have this codependence, this merger, this bond, this transaction where you have a figurehead leading a group of people without being they're not intentionally trying to be malicious or things like that. It just happens to be the case that the followers look up to this role model as a leader. So unfortunately, the role model takes on a little bit of burden or responsibility. And I'll take this opportunity to welcome people in the chat, by the way. Am I still... Is everything cool? Can you guys hear me, or am I still muted or something like that? I see a comment there saying unmute myself. Press 1 in the chat if everything is all good. Oh, I'm good. All right, thank you, GM. Because I've got this circle avatar, it doesn't undulate when I speak, so I don't know if it's actually moving. Well, great, you can hear me. So I shall proceed, because we've got a lot to get through, unfortunately. So that was a little introduction. Now we'll quickly touch on societal narcissism, and really this could be a topic, a separate video on its own. A family household. Now this theme of a family will pop up again and again, but the reason why I'm kind of like merging societal level narcissism with the more smaller space, intimate family household unit is, notice how people like to talk when they're on YouTube about it's their house. This, like right now, you guys are in my house right now, sort of thing. And so if this is my house, that means the members within this house function as family members. And notice how people call each other bros and brothers. So we're breaking down boundaries here, and we're making it a lot more close-knit, much more intimate. And we regard each other as family or brothers or sisters, and it makes the world a smaller place. And that can be problematic because within the narcissistic household, members are triangulated, their position like chess pieces, and abused and exploited. And you look up narcissistic household and you'll see the problems that derive from it. And so it won't be a surprise that when you have channels that function in this kind of narcissistic family household sort of way, we'll see the same kind of behaviors taking place. So if members of a particular channel are visiting other channels, this can create conflict. It'd be like a family member is not hanging around in your household anymore; they're going off to someone else's house, and so the figureheads of the household are wondering what the children doing when they are not at home. And so a need for control needs to be asserted. Particularly if it's like parents and the children are off in someone else's house. It'd be like, right, I want to know what you're doing over at that house, and I want you back at a certain time. And you might hear remarks, this is a quote, but I don't take much notice of it. But something along the lines of like, I can't believe you went to that channel. So you're getting shamed if you go to someone else's channel, or if you're a member of someone else's community. So again, it just illustrates how people are treating their YouTube channels as if it's their household. And it's not to frown heavily on it. I mean, there is nice aspects, but it's just a little cautionary, anecdotal observation. Let's press on. Get rid of that. A choice that isn't a choice. All right. So this is in regards to the birth, the creation of the soon-to-be flying monkey or the white knight. How it is they get into this situation. Sorry, I'm a little bit cold. Whew. All right, so a choice that isn't a choice. So when the self hasn't developed enough or isn't developed enough to handle life, the ego is leaned into and stunts the self from forming. It's purely based on emotional necessity to ensure survival and avoid being alone. The trade is made in desperation. A shield of glass, as Bandit says. So thank you to Bandit for that analogy. A shield of glass, the ego is a shield of glass. And it's all they have because they can't rely on the self. So to overthrow the ego and its mission becomes an internal battle. There is a lack of self to do this, and so the ego cannot be kept in check. This makes it useless trying to tell them as an outsider, this is what's needed to be done. So there's no point telling someone who is in this predicament that they need to keep their ego in check and focus on the sense of self. They're incapable of doing it. If anything, with this attempt of trying to inform the person of their predicament, if anything, the ego is bolstered because it is needed to fend off such perceived dangers as you're presenting, and you're presenting a loss of control. So unfortunately, with you trying to advise them and help them out, you're actually making it worse for them if you're not careful. It has taken the place of where the esteem should be. It is from here they now derive their distorted sense of identity and value. Thus, the ego has the appearance of protecting the individual, even from its own weak self that is regarded as now a liability. A choice that isn't a choice. Divided we fall, the narcissist to the rescue. So narcissists, or my queen or my king, have no problem with men, and I'm going to be using it as men being the flying monkey, white knight, even so, just whatever. It can, like we say, it can be the other way around. But for simplicity, I'm just going to use men as the monkeys and queen as the overlord. Anyway, or the narcissist. Narcissists have no problem with men being attached and stuck to their ego. It's the self-esteem they want to keep separate. This is great for the narcissist because the ego isn't who you are. It is not yourself. Victims, therefore, cannot conduct self-defense from this position. Instead, they have ego defense, which is crude and not interested in defending the self. This increases vulnerability and pushes self-esteem further down, even further and out of reach. It is seen as shame. The victims are being accepted for who they are not, their ego state, not who they were meant to be, the self, which is now rejected. With no blocks, the narcissist is a welcome relief from the stress reality throws at the victim and has helped save the victim from his own sense of self. The narcissist keeps the ego, now I've written a hostage, but I think really it should be extortion. So I need to edit that. So the narcissist extorts the ego with validation and uses it to increase self-harm in the form of self-policing. So bear in mind, the narcissist is quite lazy in a sense and doesn't want to do any work in controlling the individual, use their own shame and guilt to self-police. And then you don't have to worry about them then so much because they'll be keeping themselves. Normally, just a moment ago, we were talking about keeping the ego in check, but here they're keeping their sense of self in check, and that's another mistake. So we see mistake after mistake after mistake, and it's a abysmal situation they're in. So the master manipulator coming up, right? The master manipulator. Let me just check comments, make sure I haven't lost anyone or there's any questions or something. Okay, great. All right. So the master manipulator, and some of you might be thinking that they're not so master as if, but master in the sense that, you know, this is a life skill they developed. You don't have to be intelligent to be the puppet master pulling strings. Anyway, it might seem like all of this is consciously orchestrated and carefully planned out. That does not have to be the case. An unaware narcissist can operate in such a way having been raised without realizing they learned the art of manipulation. To the narcissist, this is normal behavior. It comes with ease and they are well practiced. It appears natural, organic, instinctual. Someone more calculating might give the game away. However, they can be more cunning in compensation. So a little emphasis on the sort of the how it appears to be normal behavior, how it's natural and without any hesitation, it's organic and it's instinctual. So it kind of passes this acceptance test because it doesn't seem out of the ordinary. And if anything, it presses self-doubt in the target because of the narcissist's confidence in what they're doing, as if there isn't a problem with it, then it makes the other person think, well, maybe the problem is with me instead. Now, I put a footnote here, which I didn't really write a paragraph for, but yeah, I should have done really. It was a bit of a last minute, but a sort of title subject, how the narcissist goes about selecting targets in which to hoover, to bring them into their harem. But we'll just, you know, you create your own notes or whatever for that. Okay, we'll jump on to the next one. The child wearing grown-up shoes, plays grown-up, right? So a parent's love, coming back to this family, mother, father, children sort of relationship dynamic. And this one, we'll go through it slowly because trying to wrap your head around it might be a bit disorientating. So initially, the narcissist presents themselves as a child. As part of the transaction, the narcissist idolizes, love bombs, gives artificial confidence, regulates emotions, accepts and sees the soon-to-be white knight. Okay? So they go up to the man and they pretend that they give the man the impression, you know, I see you, I need you, you're wonderful, you're everything I could possibly have dreamed of. And they present themselves as a child, so they're not threatening. You know, you're not going to be scared of a child, sort of thing. Anyway, so it's all designed to promote the ego and push down the sense of self even further. I mean, we were already pushing it down anyway, but this is not giving it any chance at all of emerging. So it's all designed to promote the ego and push down the sense of self. The victim identifies the self as their ego, believes their self-esteem has been raised. So they make the mistake there. They think they are their ego and it has been raised, so they feel better. But really, it's their ego has been raised, which isn't really who they are. It's their false self. So their false sense of self has been promoted and is raised, and they think this is a good thing. They think their false sense of self is actually their true sense of self. So whilst propping him up, she reveals her vulnerabilities. You won't suspect the child, and it draws the target in closer. The target believes they are the one in control and in a position of power. The love bomb process teaches the man how to look after the child prior to switching roles in the exchange that is to come. All right. So they're going to switch. There's going to be an exchange. At some point, he's going to be treated like the child instead of the narcissist, and the narcissist is going to take the parental position. But as the subject title is, it's a child playing grown up, so it's not a proper parental position with responsibilities and care and all this. It's a kid playing grown up. Anyway, so they switch. So with the love bombing teaches a man how to how the narcissist wants to be cared for before they switch roles. So once he's learned this, then the exchange can go forward. When it takes place, the man is now the child. The power and control is willingly handed over to the narcissist. It was always with the narcissist to begin with, really, anyway. But this exchange, he now willingly gives over the power and control because he sees the narcissist as the parental caretaker. She asserts herself as the parent, and she calls the shots. She's the boss lady. He is expected to obey his mother's commands, but she still wants to be cared for as though she were a child. Not cared for in the sense of doing what's good for her, rather she wants to be spoiled with her demands of entitlement. Very clear to see in the dynamics of son husbands, who take the responsibility of looking after their parent, and they are not allowed to be their own man. Without his true sense of self, he is incapable of seeing this take place. The narcissist says, "It'll be us, dear love, against the world. I accept you, and I will attend to you as though you are my child. I am your queen. I am your mother. Only I can fulfill your need." So the white knight is happy. He thinks, finally, someone is on my side and will take care of me, as he sips on the drug of her breast milk. With this style of conditional love being offered, the narcissist resembles the biological parent, who likely also raised the victim with conditional love. This brings a sense of familiarity and, in turn, additional security in the form of normalcy. So he's not going to be suspecting that anything is wrong here. He's like, this is normal. I've experienced this kind of thing before. All is well, all is good. So an outsider trying to help, offering unconditional love at this stage feels strange. He's never experienced it. They could be as nice as they want. The outsider could be as nice as they want. They will still not be trusted and instead be considered enemy. So we can see how the white knight has been ensnared, and it's becoming harder and harder for him to wake up, let alone attempt an escape. Right, so world building. We want, it's not over for the white knight. The conditioning. Damn it, I'm actually beginning to shiver. I'm getting that cold. World building. To make all of this work, the narcissist is idolized in return. The white knight dare not question. He fears being disappointed. To question or confront the queen or his mother means he has to question and confront himself. It would be like biting the hand that feeds you. So this means that the narcissist could be the most vile, disgusting person on the planet without any morals, and it wouldn't matter. She can directly abuse the victim, in which she will do in time, and he won't care. Her puppets have already experienced abandonment, so won't want to leave their master and trigger separation anxiety. The victim is now on life support and given future faking to prevent him from coming to his senses. He is now living in a fantasy the narcissist helped create. It's his fantasy, but the narcissist has embellished it and made it plausible. So together, it's like a shared psychosis, fundamentally. The more the victim is invested, which they have to, because the narcissist holds the keys, the longer it goes on, the more they become enmeshed and dependent. The ego and the narcissist have merged into a trauma bond. So we can see how you're going to separate them. How do you separate Siamese twins? You can't really do it. So this is the problem here. They've enmeshed, they've merged. His identity and the narcissist's identity are one now. So you can't really, even if you do manage to separate them, you will trigger a separation anxiety. You know, it could be such a traumatic experience or incident that the separation itself can be worse than leaving that person in that enmeshed dynamic. So from an outsider's point of view, it's tough stuff to be dealing with. So anyway, you might have noticed that is very similar to entrapping more romantic, intimate partners. The same playbook. It works on an intimate partner level, like husband-wife. It works on a micro level, like family dynamics or flying monkeys, communities. And it works on a societal level, where you basically use the same tactics to imprison victims in a fantasy, and you hold their self-esteem, you extort it, you keep it ransom, or well, you're never going to give it to them anyway, because you want to keep them holding on. So what's the next one I've got here? Right, so servitude coming up. How are you all doing? Is it all making sense? So servitude. So what is the role? What does he do? What's the point of having a flying monkey? So the promoted victim, now flying monkey, will be willing to break laws or commit heinous acts if it means staying with the narcissist. The white knight might not. Oh, the white knight or the flying monkey might even see it. They know they're doing wrong, but their need for survival, which the narcissist appears to be providing, requires them to overlook it. So morals can be suspended. Your principles and values, what you think is right and wrong, it becomes irrelevant. This is a necessity. They have no. It's a choice without a choice. They have to do it because their survival depends on it, and they look to their narcissist as a gatekeeper for that. And so with denial, cognitive dissonance, doubling down, etc., can be used to protect the illusion of security or their survival. He will protect the narcissist in effect to protect himself. You attack the narcissist, you're attacking him. He's not protecting the queen necessarily because he likes her. He does it because he needs her. He sacrifices himself in order that he may live through the queen. He can't exist any other way. Only his self-esteem can save him. However, he has isolated that long ago. And he sees his self-esteem as being the problem. His true self, he thinks, is the whole reason why he's in this mess. So he's trying to distance himself from the one thing that could potentially save his life. That's how catastrophic of a situation he is now in. If they do feel any shame for their behavior, a bit of guilt, they attribute it to the self. because as far as they're concerned, that is where shame belongs. So their ego says, oh, this isn't us doing it, this is that self part of us that has brought us shame. So now, without any shame, because they have offloaded it to the self, they have no problem doing things which add to their detriment. So they're on that downward slope of, their reputation is in tatters, and they're not going to feel ashamed about it in the slightest, because that shame is not at them. That shame is being directed towards the sense of self. So there's no problem with that happening for them. The more they can direct resentment towards the self, the more they can distance themselves from it and purify themselves in the process. Right. The white knight problems, as if he hasn't got enough problem as it is. So you can't expect the white knight to be logical. It takes energy to use logic and critical thinking, and even more to implement it and push back, to resist and fight for your life. So there's a lot of resources, any like spiritual energy wise, that needs to be invested for that to take place. So they're not going to be logical, and such, you cannot present them any facts, evidence. You can't present them who their true enemy is or what their problems are. They fail to see the bigger picture. You can expect the white knight to question you instead and take out frustration on you. And there will be frustration because they cannot self-soothe. I mean, this is partly why they needed the narcissist in the first place. So there will be frustration, anger, resentment, and they won't be able to control it. Here's a bit of a oxymoron. They strive to create stability, but are unable. So try as they might to create stability in their life, they live in instability. They remain in a state of instability. As such, are inconsistent, reactive. They move the goalposts. They're not loyal, only to the needs. They're not honorable. They don't do any self-reflection, because that's poison and allocates shame onto the ego. So no shame on the ego. We can't have that going on. So there can't be any self-reflection taking place. And many other problematic traits that are basically too many to list out. Impulsiveness, denial, and the whole shebang. So they only take responsibility for the narcissist by providing plausible deniability. They would rather blame themselves to do better before blaming the narcissist. They are unable to sustain the narcissist's needs, their demands. You can't be a white knight 24/7 attending to the narcissist. It's just it's not humanly possible. So the white knight will never be enough, and they will be made to feel so in order to get them to output even more. So it's not just that they're being drained, but they are being milked for every drop of sweat and blood, and pressured to do it. You must do more for me. So they can never reach the dangling carrot. The white knight's needs are falsely attended to, just enough to keep them holding on. However, they believe they are being cared for, and that will result in cognitive dissonance, because as in their mind they will think, oh yeah, I'm being looked after, but in their heart they will feel, I don't feel like I'm being looked after. So again, going back to that internal battle, one side of them says, no, everything is fine, we're being looked after, and another part of them is saying, this doesn't feel right. So that internal conflict, that will create stresses, that creates the frustration again, and we can see how things are overlapping. And instead of trying to self-reflect and work out why is it they're in two minds, they'll point to other people and be like, no, they're the problem. This is, we'll take our frustration and we'll unite our split mind in order to combat our perceived opponent. But again, it doesn't resolve the issues. So outside support is therefore still required as enablers. It's the outside world that fuels this fantasy. You might think you are exposing them, but you are actually facilitating by giving them reason to stay in a relationship where they feel safe. They eventually will become depleted and can no longer function. When discarded, their corpse can still serve one more function as the vessel for which the narcissist can offload the narcissist's own shame, blaming the white knight for failures. So just because they've been tossed aside does not mean they are now free from abuse. Without much understanding, the white knight or the flying monkey are unable to make sense or express how they truly feel. They lack honesty, and as a response to avoid pain. They struggle to get help should they make that brave decision to act positive and to act positively upon it if given. This means they are maladaptive. They adapt, but it's in a malfunctioning form. It's not in a beneficial way. And we were having a chat yesterday with good mother about maladaptive. She was saying that they are adaptive, and yes, they are adaptive, but it's a mal form of adaptation, not in a beneficial way. So help cannot be applied to an intentionally absent sense of self, and it would mean the ego in its current form would have to die. So more problems, more difficulties for the flying monkey. Eventually, the monkey will realize they will feel disconnected from their sense of self or their self-being. Dissonance will creep in, and at that point, they must decide either to continue or silence the internal voices. Likely, in order to continue the illusion of safety, they will make the sacrifice. But for how long can they manage? Now, the behavior of the codependent, this is where I start to talk about as more like their codependence, really, doesn't always have to gravitate towards someone looking to exploit them. A role model could also serve as a beacon of light and could be totally unaware of the codependent's grip. And that was mentioned in the intro there. Right, we're actually getting through this. Not far to the end. Right, additional pressures. So the world is becoming more segmented with tribalistic behavior. The white knight looks around and sees danger. More reason to find protection and band together. He thinks to himself, I'm not the only one making this decision to stay. This forms a team of flying monkeys. A shared goal and group identity provides additional sense of strength. Individualism becomes further obscured as they meld into this now formulated family unit. The target is worn down by a barrage of predators looking to take advantage. Fighting is taxing and needs must be met. They will give in to conforming at some point. Okay, I'll do what you want just as long as you give me supply, my pseudo love. Take it or leave it, but you'll be alone. Now they must embrace what deal they've made and double down to reassure themselves that they've made the right choice. There is little integrity to withstand at this point. They could try to negotiate, perhaps successful. However, a compromise will come in some shape or form or another later on. So back to that transactional, a deal is being made, and it's not going to be a good deal. They're not going to be on the receiving end of a good deal. It's all going to benefit the narcissist. Now, I've got a quick paragraph, a quick 4-pointer, things that might signal, or not signal, things that might indicate the person is not a true flying monkey. But I'm open to have this debated or made correct, because I'm not too convinced, But so things that might mean a person isn't really a true flying monkey. They do not get validation or esteem from the narcissist. They do not operate in a transactional form. They are not dependent on the narcissist, and as such, they have their own freedom. They have their own sense of identity, sense of self, and individualism. So we can see that there's a few things where this person would be, they might be associates with the narcissist or in proximity, but they're not doing the bidding, or they haven't got their arms twisted into compliance or servitude. They're not made a henchman or something like that. They are their own agent in a way. Nearly there, people. Nearly there. I thank you all for following along. Right, so the obscure, how did I label this? The obscure flying monkey, white knight, still pulled in, still of potential use. So this will be applying to people who aren't actively monkeying around, but they're still an extension of the narcissist. And who might these people be? Really, I'm not sure if I should if this title is correct. I mean, they're providing supply, but I don't put brackets around this title. It might not be a very accurate description of what I'm about to read. So narcissists rely on the potential targets. So going back to like how do they select who they're going to hoover into their spider's web? They're looking for vulnerable. We all generally know that they look for vulnerable, injured, emotionally dependent sort of people. So they also, on top of that, in conjunction with that, they rely on the potential target's need for control, the desire to want to understand situations. And to do this requires you to leave your safety and step into their domain. The narcissist holds the answers, but won't give them to you. This keeps you in the dark. The target then stays winningly locked in, invested, because of this obsessive need. Like, I need to figure out the narcissist. Like, what is this matrix, Pandora's box, rabbit hole? I want to know it inside out. And that is the target's Achilles heel in a way, because you're locked in. So the process results in handing over supply, attention. I mean, look how, well, your want places the narcissist above you, because the narcissist has the answers and holds the key and is dangling the carrot. So there's you reaching to find an understanding, because it's imperative to you, because you're so desperate. I need to know. It's like, really, you don't need to know. You just need to know enough. So this places the narcissist above you. You do the bidding in the form of keeping the narcissist relevant. Oops. Really, you should be ghosting and going no contact and not being interested in what the narcissist does. But here we are. So this whole explanation and this stream, and with me sharing it and talking about it, is a testimony to that. We are all participating right here, right now, in keeping narcissists relevant. We have committed a sin, ladies and gentlemen. So unwittingly, we are providing fuel to the narcissist. We are keeping the narcissist alive. And how so? Because, hey, show my banner, right? Because so you think, and so you give it life. And that can be a springboard for a whole conversation, where even if the narcissist is out of your life, you've gone no contact, maybe the narcissist is dead, you still think about them. And because you think about the narcissist, you are bringing them to life. So curiosity, your curiosity of wanting to understand kills the cat. So the target may believe, we may believe that we are able to self-protect and we are immune from narcissism. But this grandiosity further keeps us blindsided. Only those who have boundaries are able to accept they will never get the full picture can step back and see just enough of what's going on to bring themselves a closure. And that is the key to your freedom and safety, is you don't need to know everything. You wanting to know everything will be your demise, because it prevents you living your own life. You no longer live your own life. You're living a life chasing after the narcissist, wanting to know everything, and you will never know everything, because that is part of the disorder. To be unstable, to be everywhere and nowhere all at the same time, to be never give you closure, never give you validation or justifications, and all these different like elements and things. So there is no end to it. At some point, you must decide for yourself, enough is enough, and I've got a life of my own to live, and I need to put my own well-being, my own self-care, my own ambitions ahead of the narcissist. So once you know enough, basically that's it really. It can be quite the art of grieving, letting go, basically acceptance and all that fun stuff. And that's we just gone through 3 pages there, everyone, so thank you for that. There is a part 2 to the stream, and it'll be basically more focused on outsiders, us a lot, looking at situations and trying to figure it out. And so we're well, spoiler, we are the interferers, we are the interlopers, we are the the riffraff or whatever. So we're not welcomed in this fantasy. The flying monkey victim, the white knight victim, they don't want help, because they believe they already found their solution, and their savior is not people like us, it's the narcissist. So I think I've covered, hopefully well enough, the dynamic of the flying monkey, white knight, and the narcissist. They're in their shared psychosis, they're in their own little bubble, and it's pretty well contained when you see it as a bubble. They both have these delusional concepts floating around. The only real problem is when they need the outside to enable and fuel this fantasy, to keep this bubble from bursting, because they can't do that on their own. And at some point it becomes not so much about the narcissist and their cohort of allies or henchmen, their army. It becomes more what's within your own locus of control, and that's where most of the healing work and recovery work actually takes place. I mean, you're not trying to heal the narcissist, really. You're trying to heal yourself. But with all that being said, I will now have a little closer look at the comments. I see TNFS. You would like to come up and chat? Are you still there listening? You want me to open up the panel? Okay, give me a second. I'll copy the wibble wobble, and I will paste it in there. That's a link to my OnlyFans. Oops, I mean my StreamYard. So I await your arrival. Now, how long did that take? Just under an hour. That's pretty good. I thought that but that would take longer. Now, if you asked a question earlier on and I didn't answer it, would you kindly type it in again so I could see it now and save me scrolling up and trying to read everything? Okay, so I see Mr. Henry 4Speed saying, personally, I think networking is more important. Oh, greetings, Douglas. Greetings, everyone, obviously. Yeah, it's like if I understand you correctly when you say networking is important, I mean, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. It's like some people say technology is wonderful, and then other people be like, oh, look at what technology has done to people. And I think the key there is responsibility. You know, if I give you a chainsaw, you could be responsible and use it to cut down a tree, or you could be a bit irresponsible and go Texas Chainsaw Massacre on people. Don't go blaming the tools. So networking, yeah, is like another tool. It can be a good thing, but this is where more corrupt, lucrative type of people, you know, narcissists, psychopaths, etc., whatnot, will utilize the network to prey around more. Bunk. That's the doorbell. And everybody, welcome onto the stream. TNFS. So I can hear something. Yeah. Oh, very, very, very quietly, like a whisper on the wind. I think it says you're muted. Shall I unmute you? It says you're muted there. Oh, yeah. Okay, so you're unmuted. No, you're still very quiet. Maybe it's my speakers. Maybe I've got. Can you guys hear him? Press a 1 if you can hear him. Press a 2 if you can't. Right. TNFS. Oh, he's muted again. If you can hear us on the from whatever dimension, if you can hear us from the other side, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, there you are. Like ground control to Major Tom. Yeah, we can hear you, bro.
That's what happens when you disconnect the USB port and try and put it back in. It doesn't work.
Okay. Yeah. Technical difficulty.
Well, the flying monkey, I mean, that could be male or female. I mean, white or black, it doesn't really matter. I mean, the flying monkey is like a failed narcissist, basically, and they're looking for approval because they see something in themselves in a narcissist, more or less, and they just keep doing their bidding. I've been doing this, well, I've been living in this for the last 42 years, so it's kind of like second nature to see these people play chess and play games like people, you and me, every single day. And it needs to be spoken about. And you might think, oh, they've planned this for months and months and months, but they haven't. They've been doing it for like maybe say 5 minutes in this grandmaster plan to screw you over or to use you and abuse you. You know, sometimes it's just a spur of the moment thing, but it seems like they've been planning it for months. So that's what you need to look at.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, immediately off the bat, I mean, great points you're adding to the conversation, and I much appreciate the contribution. And yeah, like as you say, it has the appearance as if it's been going on for a very long time. In some cases, it may have done, but the speed at which, and I think that's a bit of a phenomenon we're seeing in modern sort of very current culture, is the speed at which this mentality is kind of like rolling out on a more societal level. It's like spreading like wildfire, and it makes people want more impulsive, and they kind of like jump on the bandwagon. I mean, it's almost like they want to be fire monkeys. You know, they want to be henchmen.
Kind of like Jordan Peterson says, be careful who you tell good news to. And not everyone has your best intention. And, a lot of people talk a lot of smack behind your back, and eventually you'll see these people running back to people because they're looking for approval. I wouldn't call them white knights, but I mean, they are white knighting for the narcissists.
Yeah. I was close to throwing in sort of simp terminology, but I thought, man, maybe not put everything under one umbrella.
No.
You know, because like a simp in a way is a wannabe flying monkey. You know, they're kind of they're simping because they want to be recruited. They want access to this safe space or this family network, and it's all down to whether or not the narcissist wants to accept them in or not.
Yeah, well, that's what they're looking for, because they see this person as this king or queen, basically, and they idolize them and go, "Oh my God, I wish I could be this perfect person. If only I could learn and harvest this power," and they just can't. So they have to, bring supply to narcissists and hoping that they'll learn something. I see it every day, and I've seen it in my workplace. One of the questions in the comments in earlier was, RP, when you were saying about like the family dynamic, and I mentioned that some of these channels and people that are on here are like that, are like narcissists. Do you see that?
Sometimes a little bit, and I don't want to throw shade. I don't want people like having to sort of they're going to stop being brotherly with each other, like the brotherhood or brethren. I'm not trying to smite out language like that. If people want to still consider their YouTube channel as a kind of like a house, their home, you're in the living room, that's all well, fine and dandy. It's again like I was mentioning just before you came on, that double-edged sword, where for people with good intention this isn't a problem, but for other people who have not got good intention, obviously like had more evil intention, then they will be opportunistic and utilize these warm sentiments, because obviously when we call each other brother, like TNF, my brother, we're trying to make, I'm trying to make you feel relaxed and welcome and accepted, and we're equals, and we're on the same wavelength and things like that. And likewise, you might call me brother, and so on. So that, I mean, that would be a sad. In part, the narcissist would enjoy if we were all suddenly like, right, everyone stop calling each other brother, and stop calling your YouTube channel your house. Stop making it all warm and welcoming for people. The narcissist would enjoy that, because it's like, haha, you're not able to be your authentic. You're having to self-police, and you're not allowed to enjoy and live comfortably and be close to anyone, just in case of whatever. So we shouldn't be deterred from calling each other brother or sister, or treating each other as family, or a community, on a larger scale, because that would be given into the narcissist. So the only real differentiating part is whether or not it comes down to whether or not you're doing it with good intention or you're doing it in bad faith. Now, as long as you're doing it in good intention, basically you can continue, no problem. But just bear in mind that some people might not be doing it in good intention. They might be doing it because they see the benefit of this network and how to infiltrate and get access to people by being a chameleon and sneaking in.
Oh, look, absolutely. Just some of the things that have happened in Shinobi's Discord, and what Hemis is trying to say and Angela's trying to say is, promoting. I'm not promoting anything. I couldn't care less about subscribers anymore or making money, as we said in the interview the other day. I'm doing this for free. I'm not asking for any money. And some of these chameleons out here that stay in there for a while and go do other people's channels and promoting and all that, they're I think a flying monkey. They're a false facade. They're claiming to be something that they're not. And I want some of you guys to watch how they present themselves, because a lot of these people say they're brothers and I'm in here for the good fight, and I don't think they are. They're not nice guys. Guys like you and me, they got completely bowled over in the court system or the workplace or family. I'm not out here for the magical muffin. I'm out here to help guys watch these red flags, because this is not a joke, and that's what I'm all about. And no one seems to grab the concept, but I'm not out here to promote anything. I'm not out here to make money. I mean, I try to find. I was watching a apparently aware female narcissist, and she brings a lot to the table. And I asked for an interview. Oh, they want money. Like, it just really gets my goat. Basically, I'm out here giving advice for free, like you.
Yeah, I mean, this is welcome, Gray. By the way,
yeah, howdy.
I'll just add quickly here to TNFS what he's saying. It's the intention. I mean, sometimes there might be a legitimate reason why they're asking for money, and you can. I don't know. It depends a little bit, because if you're not careful, you'll rationalize something incorrectly, when you should be cautious. But on the whole, as a general sort of rule of thumb, you're looking. You want to take a pattern of behavior over a period of time to get a more rounded observation or analysis of what you're dealing with. Because if particularly when we're talking about narcissism and with the flying a monkey, their behaviors will be ingrained in them. It will be continual, like constant, pervasive. So maybe like a one-off. So if you've got someone who's asking for money, but it's like a one-off, like, hey, I lost my job and I'm facing, and my kids have been taken away. I really need. I don't want to ask for money, but I hate, but I need to, kind of thing, just for this one occasion. Then it'd be hard to say that is this really a grifter then at that point, because it's just someone who needs a bit of a helping hand. And I'm sure we've all needed a helping hand at some point. Maybe they might want to have some money with the intention and promise, and they actually follow through with it to pay that money back once their situation has improved. That'd be good to see. But yeah, if it's like racketeering, like grifting, then you could be like, no, you're actually capitalized. You're actually exploiting people. So I think the skill set isn't so much that we need to be recoiling in horror and fear at, oh no, there's potential predators everywhere. As long as we increase our own situational awareness, our own emotional understanding, intellect and IQ and all this sort of stuff, and some of these other kind of aspects, then we safeguard much more effectively.
Oh, look,
So,
absolutely.
will it, Gray? Gray, you got something you want to add?
What should I add? Did I miss anything? I mean, I just wanted to check in.
Did I miss anything? God.
You
Right
have
from the
like this.
beginning.
You seem to have like this serious discussion. I had a few beers, so I don't want to.
Well, on the whole, we're talking about flying monkeys, white knights, and how they get recruited into how they come to be, how they're created, how they end up getting taken advantage of.
But you were talking
exploited.
about narcissism, right? What a
Yeah.
narcissist.
But
One
more
thing.
focused on the white knight aspect.
One thing. So that would be mostly like from our perspective, it would be dudes white knighting for narcissistic women.
Generally, yeah.
Yeah. I would have like one maybe minor complaint to that.
Sure.
And that's like something I noticed personally from my perspective. It seems like a lot of guys always talk about, I mean, understandably so, maybe they've fallen trapped by a narcissistic woman. So basically it's like a partner dynamic. But like from my perspective, what I am like wondering is like, not that many people seem to talk about like narcissistic parents, which would be more appropriate in my case.
Mm-hmm.
Since I'm not suffering from this narcissistic partner dynamic, but more like from a narcissistic parent dynamic.
Well, there are content and channels.
Okay.
More not channels that are more narcissist focused. You know, they don't talk about Manosphere or MGTOW or Red Pill. They're just pretty dedicated for narcissism, and they do cover narcissistic parents or households. But even in this stream, I kind of touched upon this idea of a parental role and the narcissist being a sort of childlike. I mean, the white knight ending up as a childlike, obedient slave.
Well,
so my queen, my mother. So it's kind of like my queen / my mother.
I mean, I remember like Contriver, for example, he like referred to this German lady like in the 80s or 70s, the Esther Villa lady. She talked about it's like the conditioned male. You know how men are conditioned to. You know, you drive down the road, you see a woman with her car on the side of the road. She broke down. Oh, you changed your tire or something. So like this natural instinct of men doing something for women to receive quote unquote this motherly praise. So that would remind me of reverting back to this. I mean, maybe not consciously, but subconsciously onto this, you know, seeking that approval.
Yeah. So that's kind of, so that's an interesting one you bring up. So yeah, you got a car, flat tire, woman, man comes along, Captain Saber. I don't really want to say anything derogatory too bad on my channel. So I try to keep any swearing down. I don't mind it a little bit.
Because it triggers the empathy.
Yeah, and his protector instinct, his natural sort of, he wants to be a helper and stuff like that. But could you say he's being a flying monkey on this one-off occasion? You know, chances are he's not going to see her ever again. It's just a one-off incident. You know, so is he being a white knight there? So this is where we need to be a bit more clear.
No.
I mean,
I personally wouldn't call that flying monkey nor Captain Saver. It's just like this. It's like I also find myself. It appears I find myself to revert a little bit to this sympathy. You know, this pity.
Right. Yeah, he does it out of the kindness of his heart, or you know, a sense of obligation, maybe a sense of duty. You know, a bit of.
I mean, in a sense, we have. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
In a sense, I feel like we have an advantage because we gaining awareness of this. Normally, you don't have this awareness. And because you don't have this awareness, a woman, especially a narcissistic woman, might be preying up on this, you know, to trigger these sympathy points. I mean,
Right.
if you're, yeah.
Right. So, hypothetically, so we take this scenario of a car with a flat tire. Welcome, Angler. I see you there.
Hey, Billy.
And we've got a guy. He stops his car to help out. You know. Now, what if she says, "Oh, thank you for fixing my tire. Hey, would you like my number?" You know, or, "Oh, by the way, could you check my oil while you're here?" You know, now you can see that she's pushing. She's pushing past. She's taking an inch and going a mile, and this is a red flag. But like you say, he might not have the awareness, and he's like, "Oh, sure, madam. I'll happily give you my number or take your number, and I'll happily check your oil. And hey, you look lovely tonight, and would you like to go out for dinner?" And then boom, you know, a whole love bombing and a romance starts taking place, and a relationship forms, and this is all kind of potentially bad news. You know, don't want to say it's guaranteed, but so I think we can agree that he's not really a flying monkey at this stage, at least, anyway, because, well, I mentioned earlier in the stream, like, characteristics that disqualify you. If he's got his own freedom, if he's not deriving self-esteem from her, he's got his own independence, his own sense of self. He's not in this fantasy, this shared fantasy. Then he can't really be a flying monkey. He can't really be a codependent in that sense.
Mm. Yeah.
Well, the nice guy is doing it out of two perspectives. Is he doing it because he wants to do it? More than likely, but he's doing it because he wants other people to see him as a good human being. Why aren't you doing this? And I guess in a sense, it makes him validated to show the rest of the world that he's a good human being. And, you know, that's about it. So I wouldn't, you know, it's not a flying monkey. He's just portraying himself as a good human being. And that's about it, really. And he's not looking for sex either, but that's how the nice guy white knight works.
Yeah, I mean, there are I've forgotten the poignant way they argue it, but paraphrasing, you know, along the lines of people don't do things for nothing. Right? We don't do acts of kindness for no, like, altruistic for absolutely zero. There must be some kind of either like a sense of self gratification or satisfaction. You know, it boosts your own moral sense of being or code that, hey, I'm not a bad guy. I actually help people out. I feel better about myself for holding the door open for someone. You know, so that's a small transaction for being a nice person or doing nice things, but that might be enough. It doesn't have to be on par. You know, like, if I'm going to hold a door open for you, I'm going to need more than just feeling good about myself.
Well, that's a very good explanation. And at the same time, it's a huge transaction in the negative aspect of being a flying monkey and doing something negative against another person just to prop somebody else up. So,
yeah, I mean, yeah, like as you say, I mean, that really is like falling into the role of the flying monkey, like an assassin almost. You know, you're
basically, yeah,
you're a warrior on the behalf of the overlord, the narcissist, whoever it is that's sort of above this person. And that's why I said at the very beginning, like, if it's a my queen, you're doing it, you're going on the attack in order to defend your queen. The queen isn't getting her hands dirty. But if it was if we swap the genders around, if it was a female white knight under the power of a king, I don't know if the king might be a bit embarrassed if one of his women were going on attack, he would be quite happy, I think, to dirty his own hands.
Hmm.
So I saw, just to give an example that I saw on Twitter once a guy post a post. I think it was an academic, like from the university, and he was like, I do not go on panels, like when they have a talk somewhere, a presentation or conference. I do not go on panels where it's all males. So basically, quote unquote, white knighting for women. So,
Okay.
I'm not
sorry. Go ahead.
I'm not exactly clear with the terms. Like, I mean, I would consider this maybe like white knighting for women, but flying monkey, maybe I would imagine as more extreme. Like a narcissist really can call upon dudes and they just come to her rescue, do her bidding.
Yep, it's more extreme. And so you saw this one thing on Twitter. Tell me this: have you ever been subject to a smear campaign? You know, whether it was a male or a female that went out on social media and out to the public and completely tried to destroy your name. No,
not that extreme. I had a male a little bit talk behind my back and making claims that are like,
that's about
debatable,
it.
But it's like reasonable. I mean, I can handle that. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm glad you brought up smear campaign. I totally overlooked that part. Thanks, Angela. But yeah. Would you like to expand upon that?
Billy, you're much better articulate than I am. So if you don't mind, I mean, I'll try, but you talk much better than I do.
Well, I'm giving you the opportunity. Okay, so no, but all credit to you for bringing up the smear campaign, because that type of assault, attack, or whatever, is reliant on spreading, right? There's no point if you've got just the narcissist saying bad things about someone. I mean, it's just one person trying to ruin another person's reputation coming from one mouth. So the smear campaign is rolling it out. So it requires people to share or to spread these reputation destroying comments or remarks, and
which are mostly false.
True. Yeah, exactly. Right. And designed to isolate, to triangulate this individual, the victim, like to beat them down and cut off any, like if they're trying to, let's say the victim needs to get help, or they're they want someone on their side that will listen and believe them. If the narcissist has beat them to the punch and has spread the rumors out, you know, the victim won't know who to trust anymore, because it's like, I have no idea what you've heard about me.
Yeah. God.
So one of the servitude functions of a flying monkey or a white knight will be it's almost like the messenger in a way, like to deliver the smear campaign and to proliferate it throughout the networks. You know, so the narcissist might not be a member of a particular community, say, right? But if the flying monkey is, then she can tell the flying monkey, hey, go to your community and spread the word to watch out for whoever. Start spreading the rumors. So it's like the residual benefits of the flying monkeys, because not only has the narcissist got a slave, but or not only does the narcissist own the slave, but they also own all the connections and resources of that slave. I mean, let's say the narcissist was needing some money, she can turn to her white knight and say, hey, can I have some of your money? And he'll probably, you know, hand her some cash. Well, hey, can I borrow your car? And be like, okay, here you go, here's my car. So it's not just his servitude, but it's his resources, his connections, his assets, his what. Well, the sky's the limit. I mean, anything is basically like all encompassing. He belongs to her, and she has, with lack of limitations, a lack of boundaries, and all the rest of this sort of stuff, demands grandiosity. She's entitled to absolutely anything and everything that is from his side.
And this, the flying monkey thing, it runs the whole spectrum, you know, from rich to poor. It's rampant. Okay. Everybody has their own, let's go from rich to poor. And I'm not talking bad about anybody because, I'm not wealthy or anything like that. But it runs from rich to poor. And these narcissists, they have this way of grabbing people up, whether it's 2 or 3 or whether it's 10 or 20. And they have these people, and once you are deemed bad, they'll bring you in very graceful and friendly ways. And the minute that you make them unhappy, they will kick you out. And boom, there it is.
Well, kick you out, sort of, with a elastic cord still attached to you, because you might, they can hoover you back in if should a situation come about where suddenly now you might be of use to them. So that's why they say the true discard isn't really from the narcissist; it's from the victim who decides enough is enough. I'm not going to do any more. So the narcissist never. They say that the narcissist never really throws away their items. What they do is they put their toys, people, they put them in the garage, on the shelf for a later date. They might leave you there forever, but you're still property. They might come back to you at some point later on. And like you say, it doesn't matter what age, class of people, everyone is a potential monkey. Just like Gray, you were saying with the parental. So this might upset a few people, like the parental narcissist. So if we think about it, whether the narcissist is a parent or a married partner, whoever is in that close proximity to them, be it they are a child or the husband or wife or whatever, they're like flying monkey number one. Now look how many times a husband, like a wife is, let's say the wife is the narcissist, but the husband is defending his wife, and he knows that what she's doing is wrong. So he's not really acting as a proper husband. He's not even, like, the narcissist doesn't look at him and go, "Oh, he's my husband." She looks at him and goes, "Well, he's the biggest sucker of them all because he married me." And likewise, the narcissistic parent doesn't look at their children as children. They look at their children as like, these are my extensions. These are younger versions of me, sort of thing. And I'm gonna utilize my children as property.
Greg, please go ahead.
I can only tell from my experience that, like, when I was younger, to have a narcissistic parent or one parent wasn't necessarily that bad up to a certain point when I felt the behavior changed. And now in retrospect, what shocks me the most about is this, I don't know whether I heard it on while talking on GM stream or while listening to this Richard Granning guy. But I think at some point someone mentioned this this sadistic pleasure that the narcissist can get by exerting control over you. And now thinking about it in retrospect, it kind of creeps me out somehow.
Mhm.
It's like, let's say I push Billy's buttons, or I push Engler's buttons, or whomever's buttons. And I know you feel bad. Billy feels bad because I push his buttons. Engler feels bad because I pushed your buttons. And then I get pleasure out of it. It's just like so weird. I mean, it's like I don't, you know, I thought I know, okay, this is my parent or something. But then in retrospect, it's like, oh, shit, stuff was not how it seemed to be. And I think I really need to marinate on that and digest that.
There comes a point, like with prolonged time, there comes a point where the codependent, whoever it is on the receiving end of the narcissist, starts to, they have to do this at some point. They have to start to counter manipulate. So then this fantasy world that they're sharing becomes the manipulator has to manipulate the manipulator in order to keep this going, because they start to twig like the narcissist is, they might not realize it, what they're dealing with is a narcissist, but this abusive person is so abusive that as part of their own survival necessity, I was going to say prerogative or something like that, they need to sort of start to counter manipulate it. So when the narcissist makes a demand, the codependent half-ass addresses that enough to satisfy the narcissist and get the narcissist off their back, kind of thing. And obviously this isn't going to be a healthy dynamic. I mean, it wasn't a healthy relationship to begin with, but it's now taken another, it's gone into another level of unhealthiness where they're both running games on one another, essentially. And also factor in, eventually over time, I mean, you've got a codependent, their sense of self has been eroded away. Who they think they are is the narcissist. They share this identity. And so the victim picks up characteristics of their abuser. So let's say the abuser is very violent, then there's a good chance that the victim, the codependent, will start to exhibit violent traits because they're kind of mirroring. They're doing the same sort of thing. And it might, from the outsider, you might be looking at them like who's the narcissist here? They're both acting pretty much the same kind of way. They're both being abusive to one another. This isn't healthy. And in some respects, this is kind of true because you're not dealing with two people anymore at this point. You're dealing with basically one.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I can see what you're saying. You know, it comes, you know, from the aspect of, you know, being obedient to that type of behavior, and then up through adolescence and all that. And then, you know, the adolescent starts to push back. And then if the adolescent doesn't push back hard enough or whatever, you know, yeah, it's learned behavior and it becomes reactive abuse, you know,
Right.
where you're getting something and then you're giving something back because you're simply sick of it. Yeah.
Well, I think the more accurate way of putting it is because, so the narcissist, like air quote, like manages their victim. Like they bark the orders and they tell the victim what to do. The flying monkey, they tell them, they pull the puppet strings, right? So they're managing the victim. But then that point comes along when the victim, in a way, because the narcissist is trying to offload their caretaker. They want their flying monkey to look after the narcissist. So the victim, the flying monkey codependent, has to start managing the narcissist. So let's say the narcissist wants, do I look nice in my dress? Do I look fat in this? And instead of telling the truth, like maybe yes you do, the victim says, oh no, you look wonderful, you look gorgeous. So he's telling a lie to the narcissist, but he's managing that. He's keeping the narcissist happy. So who's controlling, who's manipulating who's controlling who's really the one with the power and the control here? It gets confusing, and well, the boundaries, the lines get blurred. And that's even more reason why it becomes a shared psychosis. They both basically become one entity.
I
so
think
breaking
the best thing you can do is just get distance and hang out with normal people, because otherwise it's gonna start seeping into your mind, and it's not gonna be you. It's some other nonsense, and it's just like not healthy.
Well, it's not that easy unless you've been through it.
Yeah. I mean, the way we'll go, like, Gray, go back earlier in the stream at some point and listen how problematic once the hooks, or the he's taking the bait or whatever, once he's into that sort of web, that dynamic with a narcissist, his escape is virtually impossible, because one, he doesn't want to escape, he doesn't see the problem with it. He thinks this is familiar. This is what he's kind of used to and been conditioned to expect as normal. He thinks this is healthy. He doesn't recognize outside help. And even if help was available to him, he doesn't know how to implement it. He doesn't know what to do with it. So his predicament becomes more and more like ironed in.
So you're talking about the flying monkey caught in a spider web, so to speak.
Kind of, and the more you struggle, the more entangled you become.
Yeah, that's not me though. That's not me though. I hope so.
But there's also another problem. Like, let's say he does manage to break free. Like, no matter how much demands are placed on him, he just can't keep up. And the thing is, he won't be able to keep up anyway, given enough time. Because the demands.
But that is scary. That sounds very scary, because it sounds like I lost my, how do you say that? My ability to see.
Right, he can't see it, and the thing is, what makes it even more sad in a way is that he's chosen not to see. He doesn't want to see it.
It's like I would say I had periods where I also would say I didn't see things like clearly, but there was something like a discomfort. You kind of at some point you were feeling like something is not right here.
I mean, in part,
and then it's a process, right? You have to figure it out, and
yeah, that is that's almost like a miracle what you're describing in a way, because I mean that cracks the door open, and now there's a chance to escape out of this nut house. But even if they do manage to step outside, now they've got another problem. Like, they've never experienced the outside world ever. The movie The Matrix, when he gets unplugged, he's all disorientated. He vomits. His eyes are burning because he's never been unplugged all his life. He's been in the Matrix. So when he's unplugged, it's like a whole new different world to him. And it's a scary world at that. So, I mean, with Cypher, the character in the Matrix, he's so distort with reality. He wants to actually go back into the Matrix. And this is the problem with, let's talk about like blue pill and red pill for a second. Like, people will live in the blue pill world until it's basically impossible to continue, but they will hold on with their dying breath if they can. And when they're given false hope, like in the form of future faking or false promises, and the narcissist is great at doing this, they'll just say something like, oh, I know things are tough for us right now, but if me and you stick together, me and you can face the world and we'll be united. Like, you'll never be alone because I'll always have your back.
What that sounds like? That sounds like they're trying to tell you, just imagine the perfect blah blah blah.
Right, they sell them a dream.
That is very dangerous when they start imagine this, imagine that. That's inducing this shared fantasy. Like, just imagine.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
definitely. Like,
what the fuck?
and so the victim, not only is he going to hold on, but he'll be willing to endure even more pain with the idea in his head that it'll be worth it in the end, because think how wonderful paradise will be once we get through all of this chaos or whatever it is. So not only does it keep him holding on, but it encourages him to tolerate more pain, to more abuse.
Yep.
It's sick stuff. It's absolutely diabolical. But we can see like just how trapped the victim is once they get into this sort of dynamic and this shared psychosis and all what we're discussing here. I mean, it's a miracle upon a miracle upon miracle for him to ever really escape, and that will only be just the beginning of essentially like a new life of the unknown. I mean, he has no idea who he is anymore. He's got no real sense of self because he's been living in his ego all this time. He's basically, and God knows what sort of age he is, but he's got the mentality of a child, and he's all alone in this big wide world, having to make sense of it all. And you know, but at least he technically would be free at this point, and you know, he can start to progress. But it's not just because you've escaped the narcissist doesn't mean problem is solved. You know, you've got more problems, which means the whole road to life, if you've had narcissism being a factor in that somewhere along the line, that's kind of, as big as it is and complicated as it is that we're discussing, in the grand scheme of things, it's actually quite a small piece of the puzzle or piece of the journey. The rest of your life is what matters, really.
Yes, that's true. But the whole narcissism thing, my goodness, I mean, that took up a big part of it. So
yeah, well, I mean,
that's going to be that's a huge part to overcome, you know?
Yeah. Well, we as victims or people on the receiving end of that abuse, we give it more meaning, or we give it more life in a way than it deserves. Because if we remember that the narcissist would enjoy knowing that you haven't got over it and you're going on in life traumatized and still hurting and bleeding out from your injuries.
Yeah,
You know?
that's a good point. Yep.
So if ever you want to sort of stick it to the narcissist, you know, like giving them the middle finger, would be to know enough to know what you're dealing with and close the book on that.
Yep.
You know, move on with your life. It might seem like you're devaluing your experiences, or it might seem like you're minimizing what's happened to you, but the action of having that closure and moving on with this mentality of like, yeah, but you know, I'm not going to obsess over it, is far more profound than because what you're doing, if you carry on the memories and the trauma, and you're scarred by what's happened, then in a roundabout sort of way, you're still honoring the narcissist.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so in a way, you might have physically made no contact and moved to another state or country, and you got remarried and continued to live in your life. But if you still got these memories and they occupy your thoughts, then you haven't truly got your freedom.
Right. Yep. That's true.
But I doubt I'm ever going to get rid of it completely. I mean, I can think of other things. I don't have to draw it into my mental space, but I mean, it's part of what I've experienced.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to give yourself a lobotomy or like, you know, wipe your mind and like forget it. I mean, yeah, like you say, it's happened, but it's the difference of knowing it's happened and accepting what you know. You can't go back in time and change it, and obsessing over it and reminiscing, you know. So as long as you can kind of compartmentalize it and be like, yeah, that was, you know, you still acknowledge like, yeah, that was traumatic. I did hurt a lot. It did mess me up. But with all that being said, it's not gonna reign over me anymore. I'm not gonna give it more
The weird,
of my
the weird,
emotional energy that it deserves.
I think the weird thing is that in the moment you don't realize.
You know, well, if we're now talking about the grieving process, really. So I don't know if any of you have experienced a person who's close to you who has passed away, but it's a similar kind of sort of thing. Like, yes, you have memories of someone that you used to know, and they physically passed away. They've been buried in the ground, and yes, it was very sad. Some people, for some people, they can't let go of the idea that this person is now departed, and you know they're grieving, they're mourning, they're very upset about it. But you hopefully at some point there comes a time where it's just like you have to kind of let it go. That doesn't mean you've forgotten this person. It just means
it's almost, the way I would describe it is almost like you imagined the person to be someone, and then it turned out it's not what you imagined it to be, but it's over a very long period of time.
Well, if it's any consolation to anyone, and not to sound demeaning to people who have experienced a loved one or a physical person like dying on them, but narcissistic grieving, this kind of form of grieving, the psychological form, is more intricate in a way, because it's more than just grieving the loss of a loved one. With the narcissistic abuse, you're also grieving to some extent the loss of your innocence, the loss of your own childhood, the loss of trust, the loss of love, maybe, because you love the narcissist so much, and now you'll never be able to love in the same way because you'll be cautious going forward. You know, you won't be able to love with open arms and being completely like trusting because of the lessons you've learned. So there's the grieving of this innocence, this ability to love freely and liberally, and having trust to such a wide extent. So it's a grieving process on multiple layers, and it's all at the same time. So it's no wonder people struggle to get over narcissistic abuse.
Yep, and like Gray just said, you know, it's not totally about, you know, narcissistic abuse, which I'm totally on board with. Billy, you know that. But he talked about, you know, like when you meet somebody and they're not who you thought they were, and you spend some time with them, and then there's the fallout of, you know, once you realize they weren't really who you thought they were, and shit kind of goes south from there, you know. Now, I don't know if we want to talk about the 5 stages of grief with that or anything like that, but you know, to me that sounds like maybe denial, or maybe just sounds like, you know what, bitch, you're not who you said you were, so fuck you.
Yeah, I missed out the denial. Well, when you meet someone like great, when you meet a romantic partner, potential romantic partner, you know, the first sort of dates or whatever, I mean, most of that they say is not even like, it's infatuation and idealization. Like the honeymoon, once the honeymoon period has kind of fizzled out, then you start to see the person you're well, now you're stuck with. So so the being on good behavior starts to fade away, and you start to see the real person. So in a way, whenever we're getting into relationships, we are never really meeting the person we are thinking we're going to be spending a life with, because I mean, having conversations and increasing our awarenesses, which hopefully we're doing, if we were to go into the dating market or meet new relationships, we can at least be aware that, well, what I'm seeing here isn't really the person that I've got self-awareness to realize that I'm looking at her with puppy eyes, like right now anyway, and later on I'm going to see something different, and fingers crossed, I've made a wise decision.
So, Gray, how did that go for you?
What, with the narcissist or with dating and having relationships with women?
Yeah, dating and having a relationship with women. I thought you were talking about, having a relationship, and you thought it was this, that, and the other, and then it blew up in your face.
Oh, no. I have a narcissistic parent.
Okay.
So, yeah. But when it comes to dating, for example, I went to Japan. I have a crush on Japanese women. It's kind of like my thing. So I went to Japan. I studied there for a year. And obviously I was dating. So I was dating this one girl, and at first, like, everything, like, butterflies, everything's hunky-dory. So me in total blue pill mode, being in Japan, trying to please her. I mean, not to be fake or not to manipulate, just to genuinely please her. Because that's what I wanted to do. I think that's, like, if you're a blue pill, kind of like that's your thing.
Yep.
So I did a lot of things with her, and she wanted to travel to Europe. So I traveled to Europe with her. I traveled to Germany, where I'm from. I traveled to Italy, to Milan. And but for some reason, to go back a couple of years, before going to Japan, I always had this crush on Japanese girls. So I thought, like, okay, let's work really hard, get into college, and then get into this overseas program. So it took me a lot of time. It's like, kind of like, I wanted to go there. And then when I was in Japan, it's like, I just was there, and kind of like partly of the meaning kind of got like, okay, now I'm here. It's like you set a goal and you reach the goal. And then it's like, okay, now what? I'm in Japan. I'm dating this girl. I'm doing all these things with her, things she wants. It's not like I'm in control. It's like she nudges me doing things. And I kind of got unhappy. And in retrospect, after like half a year, I broke off the relationship because I kind of was like really unhappy. I don't know whether it was me or, but I mean, that girl was not a narcissist or anything. But in retrospect, it's at some points, because I'm always felt like I'm doing stuff for her, or I'm doing stuff that she wanted. It's like I'm not doing my own thing. I felt like I almost like felt like the handbag boyfriend.
Yep.
It's like, because like in Japan, she paraded me around.
Yeah.
It's like the trophy boyfriend. Look here, in Japan, that's very serious. If you, as a foreigner, are in Japan, you study at a state-run university, you say, "Oh, I'm at this government university." Everybody's like, they all give you like huge credit. You're just like floating above. It gives you status. So, and I had literally, when I was waiting for a date, other Japanese girls would see me. Oh, I want a boyfriend like this. And it's like, they're like crazy. I mean, crazy like that for foreigners.
When you said there, Gray, that like sometimes after a while, the person you're with doesn't seem to be who you signed up for. There's a change, like the mask is slipping or something like that, or whatever. That there is a shift in their personality, or what it is you're seeing or observing or feeling. Quite often, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to. It's food for thought. But quite often, we'll find that it's not a one way. It's not just them who have changed, but it's you as well. You weren't like you were saying. that you were doing all these nice things and you were trying to help her out and you wanted to make her feel good, you know, were you, and you weren't, and you found yourself no longer being happy. So this could be a bit of a, we talk about red flags, but this could be a red flag, your own red flag, telling you that you're not being your true self here. Like you're going above and beyond the call of duty sort of thing. And so as a result, even though you're being nice and you want to be pleasing, but at the same time, you're being a little bit disingenuous because you're having to act out of accordance. You're acting out of character. You're having to be more than what, instead of accepting you for who you are, you're having to be bigger than who you are. I mean, this is part of the, here's an interesting point about idolization. The moment you're being idolized, you're being devalued. Do people realize that? Because when you're being idolized, what that is saying to you is that I'm not looking at you as a complete person. I'm just looking at the good aspects of you. So I don't accept you for who you are. I only accept you as this idolized form, but that's not who you are. This is a distorted view of you. So you're being, in a way, insulted, because it's like, what do you like if I were to meet a woman, as much as we might like to the idea of being idolized and put on a pedestal or whatever, I wouldn't like that, because you're not accepting me for who I really am. You're seeing me with a distorted view.
I mean, you have to keep in mind it's like two different cultures. So that the fact that it's even like different cultures is a strain. It's a certain strain, because it makes it harder to bridge. I mean, there are different communication patterns, like fundamentally different ways you behave socially. But the thing that I found a little bit concerning, yes, it's like a little bit like you said, but it's like I felt like she I mean, that's how I interpreted it. Like she got, I mean, she was not a narcissist, but she got a part of her self-value almost like, I attracted this guy, so I'm worth more or something. I mean, I was literally at her school. She was studying dentistry, and I was at their school, the only foreign guy, and I don't know, they had the school festival, and I'm standing there as the only foreigner, and they're like, I don't know, 50 students or 100 students, and then it's like I have to say something in Japanese, and everybody's like, oh, and she's the only one who brought the foreign boyfriend. It's like it's like weird. I'm paraded around at this point.
I mean, there's also the
I mean, I'm sure it gave her proud, or she felt good about it. I'm not angry against her, but it's like,
well, as long as it was a an okay sort of breakup and there wasn't chaos afterwards, and that's fine. I mean, sometimes chemistry between people just isn't there, or it doesn't, like when we have these discussions, it doesn't always have to be about narcissism, and it doesn't always have to be about abusive or exploitative types of people. I mean, for two people to come together in a romantic sort of way, to have intimacy, to have this bond, pair bonding, and such like things like that. Yet again, I've been saying the word miracle quite a few times in this stream, but it's almost like that, So it doesn't, and like you say, like she's from Japan and you're from Germany, so it doesn't always. Sometimes things just don't work out,
I think it's just, at some point it was just like difficult to communicate, like, because the communication pattern is different. Like we, for example, when we talk right now, we communicate relatively directly. I pinpoint things, you pinpoint things, and we have already an agreement just based off we are European culture. In Japan, that flows differently. It's more vague. It's just like you hint at something, and I And that's also something interesting. Sorry if I digress, but you know how a good mother is always very direct? She's pointing things out. The amazing thing about that is, like in Japan, that would be maybe frowned upon, or it would be considered rude or inappropriate, because like I think like if Japanese parents raise their children, it's not about pointing things out directly. It's more like, child, we're not going to point this out directly to you. Grow up yourself, observe your environment, figure it out on your own, kind of thing. And I think the Japanese thinking is, if you are always that direct, you are robbing the person of the opportunity. I shouldn't even say it like that. The person should be responsible enough to, quote unquote, read the air. So it's like the way the enculturation is like very fundamentally different. It's like a little bit hard to wrap our minds around it as foreigners. Sorry if I digressed.
Okay. No, I'm just processing what you're saying. Was, if you don't mind me asking, again, don't have to answer, was that like the last sort of Japanese relationship you had, or did you have other ones following it? Did you have the same kind of problem?
No, I had 2 relationships when I was there. I could have had more, but I'm not the. I didn't. I mean,
over in Japan, like PUA.
Yeah, I mean, like, no. If you're in Japan, if you're a foreigner, like, you'll get swarmed. Seriously.
All the passport bros are like, okay, right, I'm going to Japan now.
I mean, it has nothing to do with me. It's just like, girl from the jewelry store, girl from the pharmacy, works at the pharmacy company, girl from the broadcasting company. Like, they're just like, oh, it's a foreigner, interesting.
Yeah, they're sort of like an exotic. Ooh,
it's interesting, yeah. It's kind of like based on the. I wouldn't even say it's necessarily based on reality. It's just like they have like some preconceived notion in their mind, and that's what it is.
That's a very good point.
And you are just there. Okay, I'm in Germany. Girls don't pay any attention whatsoever. I'm in Japan. Suddenly I'm the playboy. I mean, it's like, what? It makes no sense. I'm still the same person. I'm just treated differently.
Yep. Preconceived notions have caused a lot of damage. I don't know. Would you guys agree?
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of like the expectations. So don't be surprised with disappointments. I'm sure there's more to it than that, but
yeah,
there's the expectation of like, I'm sure control would fit in there, because you got when you become disappointed, it's in a way it kind of signals, it's like, oh, I was wrong. So if I am wrong, then I don't really know what I'm doing, and if I don't know what I'm doing, then do I really have control of my situation or environment or whatever? So it can be felt as like a sort of a threat, or uncertainty. Uncertainty leads into anxiety, leads into sort of worry and concern, and that creates a stressor. And then the stress, if you're not careful, can turn into a frustration, and that can lead into anger and aggression. So it could be a cascading effect, or like a domino effect of stepping stones of emotions.
At the same time, you can have people that don't think they were wrong when they were, and then you have the deflection, the projection, all that bullshit. So
yeah, I mean, on the whole, like with Gray, with your sort of experience there, Like,
Fellas, I'm
Yeah.
gonna hop out of here. I've got a couple things to do, but
sure.
really great
Thanks,
talking to
thanks for
both of you.
You too,
Engler, I'm sorry, I didn't want to dominate the conversation. So sorry.
No, dude. Hey, it was great to talk to you, Billy. Thank you for letting me in, and big ups.
Oh, cheers! Thank you very much, Angler, for popping by and contributing to the show. And TNFS dropped out earlier. I don't know if you're still listening. If you are still there, brother, like thanks for popping by. I'm actually going to be wrapping up soon anyway. We hit the sort of 2-hour mark, but yeah, we'll let you get going, Angler. Take care,
All right.
and speak to you again soon.
Take care, fellas. Goodbye.
Have a good night, mate. Yeah, I mean, great. Like, it's good that you. It sounds as though you've given it some afterthought. You're processing it. You contemplated on it, and this is, generally speaking, like signs of good health. Like mentally speaking. You might not have the answers exactly, but the fact that you've been hopefully not ruminating and driving yourself like cuckoo bananas over it, like and it's leaving you traumatized, but the fact that you've reached hopefully like a closure, and it's been a learning experience, and even though it might have been short-lived, maybe there was some disappointments and whatnot. I mean, life has its ups and downs and stuff like that. So
but the thing is, like, the weird thing is like, I just try to be pleasing towards her. But the more I did that, I became unhappier. It's like, why is that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, would it be fair to say, like, the more you try to please her, did you get the feeling it was pushing her further away?
No.
Okay. So she liked you pleasing her, and
Yes.
didn't ever tell you
yes.
like tone it down a bit. You don't need to please me that much. I don't know. I mean, because you mentioned earlier that a narcissistic parent. So when we look at our own childhood upbringing, I mean, our love style, our attachment style, a large chunk of our personality, etc., comes from how we were brought up. So not to make you overly concerned or something like this, but I mean, if you acknowledge that you have a narcissistic parent,
I know. I think I know what you're hinting at. If you have a
this
narcissistic parent, if you have a
part,
hang on, I think I know what you're hinting at. If you have a narcissistic parent, you get conditioned to be pleasing. Is that what you're trying to say?
That's one of the things. Yeah. I mean, it could. Many things could happen. I mean, it could cause you to have abandonment issues because you'd be like trauma if you were trauma bonded to your narcissistic parent, and they're raising you with this idea of transactional love. I mean, that goes in with what you're saying, that you were trying to please her, in hopes, maybe without on an unaware level, you're trying to please her in hopes that some sort of transaction will take place. Maybe she'll please you back, or she'll give you more love or more acceptance or something. So just things for you to ponder about and mull over. But I don't want you to be leaving here thinking all doom and gloom and oh no, whatever, like but thanks for sharing that. I know it's kind of like personal sort of information, like you don't necessarily have to, but I mean, we have gone off a tangent. We were talking about like white knights and flying monkeys, but it's okay. It's how conversations go. Go with the flow. Is there other things you would like to discuss, or will you be happy with sort of closing speech or something?
Whatever you're comfortable with. I mean, it's your stream. I'm a guest.
No, I'm just giving you the opportunity and the platform to do it on. So, okay, well, I think we'll wrap up there. Or is there any questions from people in the chat box they want to throw at us quickly? Say it now or forever hold your peace. Just give them a minute, Gray, and then.
I have one interesting story. So earlier this year, when spring arrived, I was walking around in my town, and I find a goat pasture actually. I took some pictures anyway, and there were like goats munching on the pasture, and it was very popular.
I mean-
like the tourists and the children was like, "Oh, the goats!"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So yeah. Well, I'll be intrigued to see the pictures if you wouldn't mind. You know, see some of my relatives
Yeah.
and be like, "Hey,
Yeah,
my Uncle Bob." Be like, "Oh, the grass."
maybe share it next time. Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna finish here, everyone. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to my guests who came onto the panel. Thank you for listening. Take care, and there'll be a part 2 to our conversation at some point. Not sure when, but I'll let you all know. So take care of yourselves, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Billy. We stay in touch. Bye.
Thank you, Gray.